Placement Exchange, and he'll be talking about sort of the waiting game around, hi Jacob. Jacob will be talking a little bit about around the waiting game and what to do if you haven't heard anything yet regarding your SA job search. So go ahead and take it away, Jacob.
Hey, thank you so much, Colleen, and greatly appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. I know we're starting a little bit early, but that is totally fine. Glad to have you all here. I'm going to share my screen. Give me just 1 second. All right, so the reason why we are all here today is to talk about the waiting game. I'm getting a call. I thought sorry about that, as a way to start a presentation, y'all. So the waiting game, the reason why you all are here, in regards to waiting for either your first on-campus interview to hear back from an employer or even hearing back after your on-campus interview. I know a lot of those on-campus experiences have gone virtual due to the ongoing pandemic that we are facing at this moment in time. I'm going to talk to you all about my experience today. But first off, I want to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Jacob McAbee, and I serve as the program coordinator for the Placement Exchange. I just recently started my position back in March. So I'm fairly new to my role, but I'm very familiar with TPE and recruitment selection and placement. I've spent a majority of my time within the housing residence life position, which a lot of our entry-level jobs and a lot of our mid-level jobs that we have posted at TPE Onsite and on our job board is in regards to housing residence life. So I have a big understanding when it comes to that sort of thing in regards to the job search. I have now gone through 3 different job searches, as I am now in my 3rd professional job. So hopefully I can be able to offer some great advice and a lot of great information today. So as you can tell, the waiting game, there's going to be a little bit of a board game theme here. Growing up, I was really keen in regards to playing board games. My #1 strength is competition. And so my partner and I, we like to compete against one another when it comes to Monopoly and the game of life. I have to say is that my luck against them is not as great than it has been in the past, but it's totally fine. My luck will come back around. So our objects of the game today, my first time around the board, job searching right out of grad school. How did that process work for me? And so I'm going to tell you about my story, and hopefully you can shed some light on maybe something you may be experiencing at this point in time or something that you're curious about. Chance card, why you may have not been contacted yet after TPE Onsite, TPE Virtual, or an on-campus interview. And there's a lot of reasons why, and I'll dive deeper into those. Do not pass go, the things that you shouldn't do while waiting to hear back about a job. Some things that I really should have known at the time whenever I was going through my first job search, that I think that this is definitely going to benefit you. And then community chest, the things you should do while waiting to hear back from an employer. These are some things I should have considered as well. So as I said, I'd like to talk about my journey. And this part of the presentation is called Life with Jacob McAbee. So we are going through grad school. This is my lovely grad school cohort from Mississippi State University, Hail State, always bleeding that maroon and white. And we're going through the process. I attended TPE Onsite, and this was way back in 2014. I attended in Baltimore, Maryland. I had never been to Baltimore before, but after that experience, I fell in love with that city and what it had to offer. I got to experience a lot of the great food there, and if you ever have a chance to attend a national conference or even a TPE Onsite, really indulge in the food around. You'll definitely appreciate it. So after that process, I interviewed with a lot of different schools. I really saw myself going to the state of Florida, though. I fell in love with the beach back whenever I was younger, and I visited there. And so I felt like I was destined to be in Florida. And I interviewed a lot of Florida schools. And I'll tell you how that experience went. So afterwards, I came back. I was feeling pretty good about some places. I had a lot of invites to a lot of socials, and I heard back that I'd be getting back to about different kinds of experiences. Well, I got back that next week. We're all talking in our internship class and also our preparation for the next, for our professional careers within one of my classes. And the first announcement came out by one of the members of our cohort saying they'd been given a job offer and they had accepted. That totally killed my confidence. How was someone able to achieve a job just like that? And how they even get to go on campus in that amount of time. And so it just blew me away. And a lot of other people were just saying, wow, what did they do that I didn't do? But eventually, about a couple weeks later, I started hearing back from a few employers, and I ended up having 3 on-campus interviews come May, scattered throughout the continental U.S., and I felt pretty good about those interviews, and they were places that I really wanted to go. But one in particular really, really struck me, and I really wanted to be. And, you know, I kept on waiting to hear back from all 3 of them, and one of them got back to me and told me, I'm sorry, we decided to go with another candidate. It was fine. It wasn't my number 1, so no harm, no foul there. But I just wasn't a good fit for it. And then I kept on waiting to hear back from the other 2 employers, and I kept following up, but I never heard anything back from one of them. And so I decided to call, and they told me, oh, no, we've gone with another candidate. I'm sorry we didn't let you know. I thought I was going to get a little bit more communication than that, but I didn't. And with the other employer, I kept following up, and they said, we haven't made a decision yet. We're currently in a hiring freeze. And doesn't that sound familiar at this point in time? Because that seems to be the case for a lot of institutions right now. At the time, I did not know what that even meant. And it could mean for a lot of different reasons. But eventually it came around, and I was told, I'm sorry, we've decided to go with another candidate. And that just broke me. I thought that my chances of getting a job were absolutely over. But I talked to my supervisor, and they really gave me some great advice. They said, you should keep applying for jobs and keep interviewing for jobs and just get a job. That's your number 1 goal. And so June came, still no job. And so it's back to the drawing boards, but all these different kinds of opportunities started coming up, and a lot of new positions were opening up. And so I interviewed for those. Any chance I got, any place I saw that I was like, you know what, it's a housing job. It's something I want to do. So let's go do it. And so June comes, and it was back to the drawing boards. I had 2 more on-campus interviews, and I was offered positions at both places. But there was one in particular that I decided upon, and as you'll see, it says free Slurpees. On July 11th, which is 7/11, National Free Slurpee Day at 7/11, during my on-campus interview experience at Florida Gulf Coast University, I'll never forget to this day. That's where I decided to be. It was Florida Gulf Coast. And it was funny, when I went in the TPE, that was actually my number 1 prospect, but I thought I had lost them. I interviewed with them at TPE as well, but I ended up being offered. And so, but everyone's saying, but Jacob, that's July. That's a long time. And it was really much of a struggle, everybody. It's because whenever it came to July, my graduate residence director position at Mississippi State had ended on June 30th. So I was left homeless. I didn't have a place to live. And so I had to find another friend to be able to crash on their couch for a little bit. And that was a reality thing for me. And I had to be able to understand is that maybe it's going to come through July, and I'm going to have to return home back to Kentucky and live with my parents. But that wasn't the case. But I had to make that realism myself. And so I want to be able to give you all some things to really consider in regards to waiting back. And hopefully my story can really translate over, but hopefully you're not experiencing the same thing that I did. But it all worked out in the very end, and it will work out for you all too. So why haven't you heard anything at this point in time? There could be 3 big reasons as to why you haven't heard back. Number 1 is there might be other interviews that are taking place. Some institutions, believe it or not, are still conducting interviews of candidates for either first-round interviews or even on-campus interviews. And that's a realistic thing because of the ongoing pandemic and the response, especially whenever it comes to a lot of housing positions of being able to close down buildings. They have to be able to respond to that and to focus their work in on that. And so, you know, recruitment has been pushed off for a little bit because they know that they can recruit throughout the summer. And they have to contact and process each candidate. And this takes a lot of time to be able to see who do we want to invite to campus. And so that may take a little bit longer. And it could be, a 2 to 3 to even a month-long process for that. And so this could be a further prolonged process due to the ongoing pandemic. And that's just a reality that we have to face. But there could be other interviews that are taking place at this point in time. Number 2, figuring out logistics. Employers may be prepping and scheduling who they will contact for on-campus interviews. And if you understand of how things are going right now, you got to be able to schedule those individuals via, virtual format. But those interviewers that are going to be in on those interviews, that'll be interviewing you as a candidate. And so you got to be able to schedule them and find out times that they're available. And when it comes this time of the year, a lot of finals are going on. A lot of students aren't going to be available during that time. And so we're in a profession where we want to be able to work with students. And so you want them to be on the interviews. That way you can be able to ask them in regards to how they experience campus. Because it puts us in a very delicate situation to be able to get that information that we need in order to make the best decision possible for us. And they're going to determine who's invited to campus. And it's very complicated. As I said, interview days, reserving meeting space, maybe not so much, but that could be the case, and ensuring that everyone is on the same page in regards to who they want to bring to campus, and trying to be able to figure out of who they want to be able to be in those interviews as well. And then number 3, waiting for a decision from other candidates. Sometimes you may not be the number 1 candidate, and you could be candidate number 2, but they have to wait for candidate number 1 to be able to make a decision whether they're a great fit for that or not. Even if candidate number 1 accepts and goes through the entire process at that point in time, employers could give them an allotted amount of time. They could give them just the weekend to think it over. They could give them a week and a half to be able to make that decision, depending on what their timeline is. Also, believe it or not, life can happen to where someone can't be able to take that position. Let's say there's a course that couldn't be completed, and now they don't have a master's degree that makes them qualified for that position, and now they can't take that position. Well, now there's a vacancy, and maybe the number 2 becomes the number 1, and you may be reached out to in regards to that. Unfortunately, it could be a little bit later that we end up, you would like it to be to where you end up finding out. But you got to be patient with the process. It's a process. And if there's anything I learned from the Philadelphia 76ers, it's trust the process. So here's some big no-nos and some should-nots of waiting to hear back. Number 1, check in aggressively with employers about your status. If there's anything that I can tell you, sending emails all the time, maybe even more than once a week, employers don't like that. It's great that you want to be able to follow up in regards to that and to know what your status is in the process. And hopefully employers, throughout a lot of the research and a lot of the education which we've had over recruitment selection over the past couple of years, is they know they need to be in constant communication with their candidates in order to ease their stress. It can be excruciating waiting to hear from your dream institution that maybe you're number 1. But this doesn't mean that you should constantly contact them to see where you are in their process, whether phone call or following up via email. This can make a bad impression, and it can drive you bonkers with worry and stress. And if anything, that stress and worry can really get to you, and then you won't be able to focus your energy on the things that you need to at this point in time in your everyday life. Number 2, never, ever, ever bluff by saying you have another job offer when you actually don't. The worst thing you can do is contact an employer with a fake offer in hopes of pushing the employer to move faster. This could hurt your chances of even working at that institution, and it could hurt your chances, in general. And when they end up finding out is that, wait a second, they said they got a job at this institution. We didn't end up hiring them, and why are they working at this place? That could really hurt your reputation professionally. And so be able to consider that. So if you don't have a job offer on the table, do not say that you have a job offer on the table. If they ask you and you do, be honest with them and tell them yes. At that point in time, when I went to FGCU and I had a job offer from another institution going into there, and I said I needed the weekend to think about it, they asked me, do you have any other job offers? And I was honest with them. I told them, yes, I do. And so they ended up calling me first thing on Monday and offering me the job. And so I was able to make a decision from there. Number 3, don't agonize and obsess. Obsessing over this decision and also, waiting to hear back, it doesn't increase your chances, and it's just going to make you miserable at the end of the day. Sleep is important. A healthy diet is important. Exercise is important. So don't obsess over it. Don't be looking at your phone. Don't be looking at your email constantly, because it's going to drive you absolutely wild. You don't have control over this process, and you got to be able to understand it. You interviewed. You did the best that you could. You had confidence in yourself. Just let it be and just let it work out. If they like you, they're going to contact you. They shouldn't stress, you shouldn't stress about things that you can't control. It's out of your hands now. So just go with the flow and just let it be. And how about the yes, yes, yeses, the shoulds of waiting to hear back? Well, number 1, keep applying to jobs. Don't do like I did and, wait to hear back from those 3 institutions that you interview thinking that you're going to at least get 1 out of 3, because you may not. Keep applying to jobs, even if it's a position that you think you're like, I don't know if that's for me or not. Go for it. Okay. You never know that you might actually like something. If it's something that you're actually qualified for and that you can do, it's okay to apply for that job and see if it is for you. You haven't spoken to them yet. They haven't given you an interview yet. So apply. No matter how badly you want your dream institution, you shouldn't stop applying. You can always tell an employer later on whenever they receive your application that, I'm sorry, I've already accepted another offer and that sort of thing. Keep your options open because you never know what's going to be around the corner for you. You don't have a job until an official offer has been made. And what I mean by that is, yes, you received a phone call with an unofficial offer and maybe you've accepted. Wait until you put that pen to paper that you have an official offer. And this last one, keep exploring and searching for job opportunities. At this point in time, let me put it in a board game reference for you. You own Boardwalk, but you do not own Park Place. So feel free to purchase some other properties. That way you can win the game at the very end of the day. So think about that. Sometimes Baltic Avenue, that may be the cheapest property on the board, might actually be something that could actually end up be your saving grace at the very end of the day. Number 2, continue on with life. Don't shut everything down just because you're waiting to hear back from employers. Keep your life going, everyday routine, just keep it up. During this time, there's a lot of time on your hands, so get out, explore, do something. And I'll tell you some examples of what I chose to do during my waiting period. So continue on your life as normal. Don't just stop doing the things you love just because you want to stay by your phone and your computer waiting to hear back. Now, a lot of our work is being done via the computer, and it's hard to get away from it. Like my 8-to-5 job is a lot of being in front of the computer all day. But just get out, explore, do some things that you wouldn't normally do. Which brings me to number 3. Feel free to learn something new. There's so many things that you can do to get your mind off the waiting game that you can focus and even find new passions and different kinds of things that you never had before, and maybe even sharpening some tools and some skills that you really need for the next step. So go ahead and learn some new opportunities for yourself. You can learn a new language. You could start a blog. You can even do a blog in regards to how your experience has been. And you can even submit those kind of things to us at TPE, and we'd love to be able to post that on our website and be able to share that out with individuals that are feeling the same exact way, that really need to hear from somebody that's experiencing the same thing as them. Start an exercise regime. Get out there, get your steps in, go to your local parks, explore them, or even just go explore a different part of town. Just get out there and just learn something new, experience something new, because you never know what you'll find. So is this game over? I don't know. I don't think so, because you can utilize some of these tips while you wait to hear back, because the game could be just beginning for you. So roll the dice, take a chance, get out there, explore, keep applying for jobs, stay positive, find something new to do. Talking about learning how to do something new, during my waiting game, I learned how to barbecue out on a charcoal grill. I'd never used a charcoal grill before. I was kind of always afraid, but I did it. I also decided to explore golf courses around my area. I may not be the best golfer in the world, but it's a time, it gives me a chance to kind of pass away the time. And it gave me a chance to kind of take my mind off of the waiting game. That way I wasn't by my phone, I wasn't by my computer, and it was a great distraction. With time and patience, you'll eventually hear from someone. But I'm telling you, it could be July or beyond. However, jobs are there, even if it could be outside of student affairs or an area you aren't sure about, that gives you the experience and the transferable skills that make sense. And if you're curious about that, shameless plug, next Thursday, Dr. Kirsten Fox, who is our director of the Placement Exchange, is going to be giving a great presentation over thinking outside the box in regards to your job search. So if you're looking for different kinds of possibilities where you're just like, I never thought about, exploring outside of the realm of student affairs, that could be a reality that may have to set in. But you can always return to the field, and you can always capitalize on opportunities within NASPA and within your different kinds of associations on a focus area that you have a knowledge in throughout this next year. The point of this is, after you graduate, is to get a job. And that is the most important thing at the very end of the day. But during this process of waiting at this point in time, it's not over. So please take care of yourselves, and please enjoy the time that you have. And I greatly appreciate you all attending this afternoon or morning, depending on what time of day it is. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be more than happy to take them. And here's my contact information if you'd like to reach out to me and maybe hear about a little bit more about my experience and some things that I've seen over the years.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jacob. A wonderful presentation as always.
Thank you.
As a reminder to folks, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask Jacob that question. Alternatively, you can put it into the chat, or you can private message either Jacob or myself, and we'll pose that to the group. So we do have one question. Regarding timeline, so you did say today not to reach out too soon or too aggressively, but what are good tips for reaching out to potential supervisors or potential employers if you haven't heard back yet?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would just say just be as professional as you possibly can. Just say where you are at in the process and that sort of thing, and just trying to ask for an update. And you can even, talk about what, is what's being experienced right now in the world. Best thing to do is just to say, exactly what they're going through. That way that they understand, like, yeah, you get it. There's a pandemic that's going on, and the response could be a lot different in regards to how an institution is responding. It doesn't have to be a very long email talking about what your experience has been and that sort of thing, of what's on your resume. Remind them of who you are and that sort of thing. Believe me, if you've had an interview with them, they know, they have that information. So don't hesitate in order to reach out. And it's okay to call. It may be kind of awkward just to be able to ask them, and they may not be there in order to pick up, and they may have to call you back. And that's just probably because they need to understand as to how they want to be able to deliver that. That way they can be able to have the best answer possible for you, because they may not know the answer, because the person that you may be reaching out to, they may not be the hiring official for that department. And so you have to be able to understand that. One of the institutions that I reached out to ask for my place in the process, they weren't the person that was controlling the process. And so I felt kind of awkward, and they said, you can reach out to this person, or I can reach out to them. And so I wish I would have had that information. And so if you don't have that information, try to find out of who's responsible for that. That way you're going to the right source, and they can be able to give you the best information possible.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Regarding, sorry, I'm always just so excited with the questions that we end up getting.
Okay.
So regarding, reaching out about potential jobs, what are some tips that you have for reaching out to potential supervisors or employers maybe between that first round interview and that second round interview, maybe you haven't gotten the offer yet for the next round of interviews, but you're really eager to hear about that position?
I'm trying to decipher in regards to my answer for the last question of how this may be different. Are you asking in regards to like following up after an interview of saying thank you and that sort of thing, and just to let them know that you're still interested and that you're still a available candidate?
Understanding the question?
Yes. Hang on just a second. Did they just ask? Okay. Well, I gotta thank you. I mean, I like I said before, I would just say in regards to if you haven't heard from an institution that you really want to hear back from, just reach out and just ask them of where they're at in their process. If you've done that already, just give it some time. I would say maybe a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks is kind of a good turnaround when it comes to things. A 14-day or I would say a 10-day work schedule is actually the best bet. And kind of a 2 weeks notice kind of thing. That way they can be able to follow up. I know that we didn't have to experience this, but NASPA, a lot of these employers attended NASPA, and so they weren't able to kind of give you an answer to things and to be able to decide things because a lot of people attended NASPA afterwards. So you kind of got to understand what's going on in the world around them at that point in time. So that's another thing to consider as well. You never know what's going on at an institution as well. As I said, there's a lot of people that are moving out. And so it may not get back to you right now, but, you know, if you haven't heard anything, a good student affairs professional will actually, you know, at least give you an answer of where they're at in their process. I hope that
Thanks so
answers.
much, Jacob.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, so we've got a question here around the effects of coronavirus have on sort of the job search process. So, you know, and the question that Oscar asks, what do you, with your experience looking at it from the perspective of TPE, what effect do you feel that coronavirus is going to have on the job market moving through the summer and into the fall?
I honestly can't answer that question until we actually get to the summertime, everybody. You know, and the reason why I say that is because, you know, a lot of people are just like, I don't like for campus housing. They don't know how many campus students they're actually going to have at that point in time. And the role of a residence life professional may change for the fall. You know, a lot of institutions are talking about starting in January in regards to having people on campus or even later on in the fall. So the contracts and also the way the position is formed may be a little bit different. But the great thing about residence life is that you're not exactly an administrator at the beginning of the day. You're actually an educator. That goes for a lot of different kinds of positions. Even within student activities, of trying to figure out how can we actually keep students active and to be coming out different kinds of events. We got to be able to think about it in a different approach virtually and that sort of thing. And so I'd be very interested to see if position descriptions kind of change over the summer. But as we go into the fall and we kind of understand of what other institutions are doing around the nation and even, you know, internationally, we're not going to have an answer just yet. And I think people are just kind of at a standstill right now, just waiting to see who's going to make the first move. But I will say this is that, you know, there's still going to be positions that are going to be out there. You're just going to have to look a little bit differently. And you may have focused in regards to student affairs and, you know, wanting to work with students, you know, in person and that sort of thing. But there's different kinds of other online entities, especially when it comes to universities and working for them and even community colleges and that sort of thing that you could possibly even reach out to and like look into. I know it's a weird possibility, especially whenever you're so focused on working at a very large scale institution like the University of Florida and that sort of thing. But you have to understand what the reality is that your job is to get a job at this point in time. But also, in case you're waiting a little bit longer, talk to your current graduate assistantship in your employer right now and see if your contract can be extended until you get a position. Mine was fortunate in order to keep me on salary at that point in time until I was able to find a job, and then I was able to depart. And so find out those kind of opportunities, but also find other opportunities on campus that maybe are presented at this point in time to kind of give you a little bit more experience and to kind of get you ready for that next step.
Wonderful. Thanks so much as always. So those are all the questions that I have on my end. Folks, if y'all have any more questions, or Jacob, I don't know if anyone's reached out to you with questions.
No, I think I see just to everyone in the chats and that sort of thing. So, but I hope this is great content for everybody. So thank you very much.
Actually, thank you again so much.
Question real quick? Hello?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, it's working. Sorry, I wasn't sure if my microphone was on or off. But hi, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Crystal. I just graduated from Nova Southeastern University, so go Florida schools.
Yeah.
So right now, currently in the job search, and I know things are kind of turned upside down right now with everything happening, but I was wondering if you had any suggestions as far as candidates to be able to stand out to employers with everything. I mean, everything's kind of crazy, whether that's maybe creating a blog, and I know you mentioned different things that we could possibly submit to TPE to publish, but I just kind of wanted to know your thoughts around the realm of being like virtually active with having a blog, vlog, or anything like that.
Yeah, I would definitely say you have regional associations that you're probably a part of with whatever your focus area is, or even with your national institution and that sort of thing. Being active on either their forums or even active within just their different kinds of blogs and that sort of thing. Posting things in regards to kind of research material that you may have done throughout grad school on your LinkedIn profile can definitely help as well. If you need to redo your resume, redo your resume. If you've gone through TPE and that sort of thing, and you've got your resume on your profile and that sort of thing, go in there, revamp it. Be looking at different kinds of jobs that maybe like you're just like, well, I didn't really have experience in this, but I could consider doing that. So go and revamp your resume that we can show that. Because believe it or not, something that you can do, another person can't, and maybe you have the skill set for that. And if you have at least a little bit of an interest in doing that, another person's not going to be. So they're not going to be so much of your competition, because you never know unless you try. And so, like, I believe it was Wayne Gretzky, also Michael Scott, talking about Wayne Gretzky making it his quote is, you're going to miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So go out there. Just put yourself out there. You never know if someone else is going to be reading your content and that sort of thing. I didn't really do that. LinkedIn was not a thing. At least I didn't use it back in grad school. So I had to be able to use what I had and my networking opportunities to reach out to individuals at different kinds of institutions to figure out more about that job and to put me in contact with individuals that are going to help me get that position. And that is more, it makes more sense than ever right now, because to be able to engage virtually is very important, because you can't do that in person. So, and if you all were in attendance, we actually do have this posted on our placement exchange of talking about an online presence and be able to build that. You can watch that presentation on the placement exchange website. It's posted under our blog area. So go and watch that. It's got some great content and material for that as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Thanks again, Jacob, so much for this wonderful presentation. We look forward to yours and Kristen's presentation next week for our final session on the virtual conference for